When the Indigenous delegation traveled to Rome, Italy in late March of this year, hopes were high that by telling Pope Francis about the attempted genocide of Indigenous people in Canada, it would allow for the next step of healing to begin.
I'm very, very encouraged by the audience we had today, going forward into our relationship, a new relationship.
And for 85-year-old ANGIE CRERAR from Grande Prairie, Alberta, she was able to tell him her story about being a survivor.
And one thing we have now is our pride. They did not break us. We're still here, and we intend to live here forever.
And after 3 days of private audiences between the Pope and the Métis, First Nations and Inuit delegation, Pope Francis addressed the general audience on the final day.
Listening to your voices, I was able to enter into and be deeply grieved by the stories of the suffering, hardship, discrimination, and various forms of abuse that some of you experienced, particularly in the residential schools. It's chilling.
But no one suspected these meetings would end with these long-awaited words.
For the deplorable conduct of these members of the Catholic Church,
e vorrei dirvi di tutto cuore, sono molto addolorato. E mi unisco ai fratelli vescovi canadesi.
I ask for God's forgiveness, and I want to say to you with all my heart, I am very sorry.
Former National Chief Phil Fontaine has traveled to Rome before to meet with the previous Pope, but says, like many others, he was taken by surprise at the apology.
In my case, I didn't think he would say, "I am sorry." I didn't think I would hear him say how he felt shame for and guilt for what the church did to our people, and that he was prepared to come to Canada.
And now with his plane expected to land in Canada on July the 24th, Pope Francis is expected to formally apologize to residential school survivors and their families. This will be the first time ever that the highest rank within the Catholic Church has ever accepted responsibility for the crimes committed against Indigenous children that were put into those schools and terribly abused. Ralph Leon is now chief of his community, but at the age of 10 was forced to attend residential school just outside of Mission, BC.
I haven't come back here because of what's still in my mind, what I witnessed here. The mental abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, verbal abuse that I witnessed here.
Chief Leon says the church must do more to address what is continuing to happen to Indigenous people.
But there needs to be a plan, a recovery plan for our people. Like I said, we're like a broken people still. This is only one residential school. There's still the scoop, foster care, day school, all those things. And it started where?
And with preparations well underway for the visit from the Pope, which starts in Edmonton, Alberta, Tony Belcourt, who's originally from Lac St. Anne, says he has concerns over what will happen in his home community during the annual pilgrimage.
That for a long time, the people in the community have been trying to get the church to turn over records of our graves. We have an unmarked grave site. There was a cairn put up there by our people a long time ago, but it doesn't cover the full footprint of the gravesite itself. So, and that footprint goes right out to where this new paved road is. So the horrible thought I have in my head is, thousands of people standing on our unmarked graves right beside that paved road so they can wave to the Pope when he goes by.
For other survivors like Geraldine SHINGOOSE from Manitoba, she says she isn't quite sure how well this visit will be received from other survivors in Canada.
That the whole intent
of this visit. I see it as a photo op, and as a, like, you know, it doesn't come across truthful.
SHINGOOSE says that although Pope Francis made no mention of the suspected unmarked graves of children that were buried near residential schools, she is hopeful that this visit will help bring more of the truth of what really happened.
And in that walking together, they're saying there's reconciliation and healing that they want to bring, or we can't have that without that truth.
For CASSIDY CARON, she says there could have been more done to include the voices of survivors in the planning.
There have been challenges along the way. There has been unclear processes. There has been unclear authorities in decision making throughout the entire process. And once again, you know, we could have had more input. We could have, you know, been able to bring survivors to the table to guide this process. The opportunities, though, just haven't been there to the extent that we had hoped.
For years, there were stories about the horrors that took place behind closed doors. Stories of horrific abuse suffered by survivors that were told over and over again, but no one seemed to listen. And those traumas were then buried, eventually manifesting into a lifetime of sadness, addiction, and chaos. For the thousands of children that made it out alive, that pain also reverberated into intergenerational trauma as they grew up and had families of their own. In many cases, this caused further dysfunction as the trauma from residential schools never fully healed. It's expected that Pope Francis will offer his first official apology to residential school survivors and their families on July the 25th. Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.